Koka sunarai sunarayenti. 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 Koka sunarai sunarayenti.
Hampoi Sachamama, Hampoi Otorongo, Hampoi Kenti, Hampoi Apuchin, Hampoi Santa Madre Tierra, Hampoi Padre Cielo. There is a river flowing very fast. It is so great and swift that there are those who will be afraid. They will try to hold on to the shore. They will feel like their hearts are being torn apart, and they will suffer greatly. The elders say, know that the river has a destination. You must let go of the shore. You must push deep into the middle of the river, keeping your eyes open and your heads over water, and see who is in there with you and celebrate. At this time in history, we are to take nothing personal, at least not ourselves. For the moment we do, our spiritual growth and journey comes to an halt. The time for the lone wolf is finally over. Gather yourselves. Banish the word struggle from your attitude and your vocabulary. All that we do now must be done in sacred manner and in celebration, because we are the ones that we have been waiting for. Aho.
Hello, hi, welcome back to this new episode of the Mango TV podcast. Today we have, for the third time, Louie Valotti. Louie Valotti is the visionary behind the Genesis Holistic Medicine. He's a student of Dr Gabor Maté in Compassion Inquiry and Dr Alberto Villoldo, initiated into the Peruvian Q'ero lineage of shamanism. Certified shamanic energy medicine practitioner and graduate of the Four Winds, he specializes in biohacking, self-enquiry, and deep mind technology. Welcome back, Louie.
Thank you so much, Giancarlo.
So for those who have been following the first two episodes, you know that we promised to dedicate one full episode per principle. So the first one was biohacking, the second one was self-inquiry, and now we will be going deeper in what deep mind technology means. Let's go.
Thank you again, Giancarlo. So we're coming to the final principle. As you said, Genesis has three core principles, very much aligned to body, mind, spirit. And in deep mind technology, we go into the principle of spirit. The way we translate that language is that we work with energy medicine, and we work with ancient lineage-based system of energy medicine. The two particular ones would be Chinese medicine and a shamanic energy system that comes from the Q'ero lineage in the Andean mountains of Peru. So my journey into this lineage has come through a man called Dr Alberto Villoldo, which you introduced in the beginning of our podcast. And today I am called to share about this lineage. It is a very unique story. It's a very unique lineage. It traces very far back in history. And I like to say what this lineage offers is an energy medicine system designed for the evolution of human consciousness. It is a prophetic system that comes to us particularly in this time of age to support humanity in their transition, in their evolutionary leap, in their full becoming. I can share a little bit about the heritage of the Q'eros, just to give some background. So the Q'eros, they are the descendants of the Incas priests. And what happened around 500 years ago when the conquistadors came to Peru, the Incan empires, as it was dissolving, as it was losing itself and falling, the Incan priests that held the highest teachings of their cosmology and lore escaped. And their way to escape was to travel as far up into the mountains as they could. I believe we're talking around 16,000 feet up, where they could seek refuge and hide. And what they hid was this oral tradition of the Q'eros, this energy medicine system.
Yeah, like the Kogi did in Colombia.
You can say it's similar. There are many strains of original shamanism or energy medicine that are hidden this way, oral traditions that are kept very secret. The Q'eros, they stayed 500 years in the mountaintops until they received what they call the signs of destiny, the signs of one of their last prophecies to come into fulfillment, being the prophecy they called the Pachacuti, the realizations of times to come. So 500 years later, in the 1950s, they came down to the mountains and they gathered one of the biggest tribal reunions in the footsteps of the Andes, where shamanic tribes from all over Peru came together. And the story goes, when these other tribes saw the Q'eros come down from the mountains, they hadn't been seen for 500 years, but they were recognized because they were wearing the broderie and the emblems of the Incan priests. And that is when the saying came out, you are the ones we have been waiting for. This true lineage, Native American lineage, that is the source of all the Native American teachings of shamanism. So just to give a final introduction, the Q'eros and the Inca, they originate from a migration of shamanism that comes from the Laika Indians. And the Laika, they started their journey 30,000 years ago in the mountains of Himalaya. This is Himalayan shamanism. And the migration went through Mongolia, Siberia, the northern Scandinavian countries, and the glaciers, coming down to Alaska, Canada, North, Central, and South America. Along this 30,000-year-old pilgrimage, you will find settlements all over the world. And these are the settlements from this original Laika strain of Indians. Mongolian shamanism, Siberian shamanism, the Lap people of the north, the Eskimos of the north, the Hopi, the Dakota, the Mayan, the Aztec, they all lead to the original strain of the Incas and the Q'eros. And the Q'eros hold the pure form of this system of energy medicine.
So interesting. I remember Yuval Harari was saying that the reason why they start going from the Himalaya to the North Pole and Alaska is because they were hunting the mammoth. And that's how then, when Canada was connected, that's how they start populating the Americas. That's why maybe some of these indigenous that have this, like eyes a little bit like, how do you say, oh my God, like the mandorla in Italian, like this, like Asian eyes a little bit. Because, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you can see the ethnic background and genetic background of a lineage that has traveled for many thousand years. So when we talk about the Q'ero lineage, what they are offering is a system of energy medicine which they call the energy wheel, the energy medicine wheel, the shamanic medicine wheel. This is an ancient system, a beautiful system, oral tradition of enlightenment, of working through the layers and the dimensional layers of a human being to be able to transcend and come to its highest completion of existence. The medicine wheel, if you look into the traditional Native American traditions of medicine, you will find traits of this medicine wheel all over the Americas, also all over the world. We are looking at the classical depiction of the four corners, the circle with the four cardinal corners within them. This is one of the oldest symbolizations we can find in cave paintings, we can find in all traditions. And this ultimately represents the medicine wheel. So, depending on what culture you work with, if it's African or North American or South American, some of the archetypes, the archetypal animals, the spirit animals that are used will differ. In the Q'ero's case, we are talking about 4 archetypes that we work with. So to give a bit of, I'll give a bit of introduction, if that's okay, to it, to explain it for those who are new to this. So the medicine wheel is a circle with 4 corners. Each corner represents a cardinal direction: south, west, north, and east. Each of these directions is hosted by an archetype spirit animal, an archetype of energy. It's metaphorical in a way, it's representable, but I share that just to not get confused when we mention animals in terms of energy medicine, but it is the spiritual forces, the spiritual wisdom that these animals carry. So in the south, we work with what the Q'ero call the Quechan language, the Q'ero language, they call the Sachamama. Sachamama. It's translated into come mother, but we use the word Sachamama to invite in the great serpent of the south. The medicine of the south is regarding the dimension, the physical dimension of existence, our human body, our external experience of life, our relationships, our physical health. It is the beginning of the journey when you initiate into this lineage of shamanism. It is the beginning of your journey of starting to purify your body, of starting to let go of the material world in the sense of attachment. There are traditional initiations you do in the south, and also when you are initiated and you become a carrier of this lineage, there are certain rituals that you offer on the basis of this serpent energy. The sacred space we work in, the first texts of the prayer when we open the sacred space is that we call to the south, we call the great serpent, and we ask the great serpent to come, the great mother serpent to come and wrap her coils of light around us, for her to teach us how to shed the past like she sheds her skin. When we move from the south and we come to the west, we come to another dimension of medicine within the medicine wheel. The west is represented by Otorongo, by the great mother sister jaguar. In the west, we come to the realm of the mind. We move dimensionally from the physical world into the world of the mind, into the world of perception, into the worlds of beliefs. What the jaguar is here to teach us is to become fearless. It is to face and work through our fears and ultimately transcend the fears of death. In particular, when you work and being initiated into the west of the medicine wheel, what you're learning there is to work with intrusive energies particularly. So when we talk about intrusive energies, that is where shamanism becomes a bit more mysterious and spooky for some. The jaguar, it teaches us how to work with 2 forms of intrusive energies. One is called fluid energies, the other one is called crystallized energies. Basically what we're talking about here is how do we work with earthbound spirits? How do we work with spirits or entities that are attached to our field, which we will come deeper into. We also work with cords, contractual cords, meaning codependencies we have with family members, with ancestors, with other beings, living or past. there's much we can say about the medicine wheel in the corners, and in terms of this podcast, I want to go through it a bit quicker with you. So ultimately in the West, we transcend our identities, our roles. We want to come into the pure self, the true self, the essential self, as is also called. And when you transcend from the West to the North, that is when you're transcending the body and mind, and you're coming into the dimension of the hummingbird, the royal hummingbird. The royal hummingbird is the archetype of the North. It is the dimension of the soul. So we go from body, mind, into the dimension of the soul. And it's interesting because in the dimension of the soul, we learn that the soul communicates through emotions and images. There is no longer a physical presence. There is no longer a linear time-space perspective. There are no longer thoughts or perceptions. It is all based in images and emotions that the soul carry. And here we learn how to heal those emotions, how to change those images, how to evolve those images, either if they come from a current lifetime or if they come from a past lifetime. This is where we do what we call soul retrievals, where we learn how to track, and to find the times and places in our timelines where we lost essential parts of ourselves. In the North, it's all about becoming whole on a soul level. And it is about starting to commune with spirit, starting to understand the relationship with the greater all, the infinite being. As we move into the East from the North, we come into the archetype of the eagle, Apuchin. And the energy of the East is all about energy. That is all about unmanifested potential. It is our communion with the Great Spirit, God, Source, whatever one would like to call it. And here we learn how to dream the world into being. How can we be in service to Spirit? How can we be in service to humanity? How can we be in selfless service? And learning how to read the signs of destiny, reading the signs of synchronicity, to understand how we are meant to be in service. So, as I said, there's so much we can share about the medicine wheel. So now, to keep it short, we have 4 corners. South is serpent, west is jaguar, north is hummingbird, and east is eagle. That is the preliminary foundation of the medicine wheel.
Allow me just to maybe put all this into context for people that didn't hear the first 2 episodes. Ultimately, Louie is a therapist, is a shaman, but is basically helping people with psychological or spiritual crisis. He used these 3 principles to help people to find themselves, reconnect themselves, dealing with addiction, depression, trauma, childhood trauma, recent trauma, sense of being lost, midlife crisis, heartbreak. So now we're gonna hear how the 3rd module of the deep mind will be, how all this knowledge and wisdom you heard, how all this can be integrated for the first 2 principles and applied for alleviate human suffering.
So, the medicine wheel is all about evolution. It's all about spiritual and evolution. And what makes this system unique in terms of most shamanic practices is that it is very scientific from a quantum mechanics point of view. So what you learn from the Q'eros is that a human being consists of a body and a mind, but the true essence of a human being is what we call the human energy field. By the human energy field, I refer to the subtle bodies that every human being has. These are known as the 7 main chakras and the auric fields that surround and encompass each chakra. 7 chakras, 7 fields. In the lore and the cosmology of the Q'eros, we learn that there are also additional chakras. Particularly, we work with the 8th chakra, The 8th chakra is hovering a few inches above the crown. It is what we call the Viracocha. The Viracocha, this 8th chakra, this is the part of us that never dies. This is the part of us that reincarnates from body to body to learn, to resolve its karma, and to become whole, to have a clear field. So why is this relevant in terms of the work I do and how I help people? In this shamanic lineage, we learn that all our physical and mental and emotional suffering ultimately comes from the imprints, the sources of seeds, of memories that we carry in this human energy field. So becoming clear, becoming a whole bone, as we call it, a hollow bone, a clear channel. Our work is to clear this energy field. It is to track and find the contracts, the imprints, the times and places that go beyond linear time and activate evolutionary processes in the field of these imprints and these karmic pasts. So I can give an example to this, how that works. We're given a very specific system of energy healing. The Q'eros, we work with what we call the Kuyas. We work with something called energy medicine stones. So when you are initiated into this lineage, in the end, when you've gone through all the rites of initiation, you will have what's called your mesa, which consists of 13 stones that have been activated in a spiritual way. You will work with tracking tools, pendulums, feathers, rattles, spirit water or agua de flores. You work with shamanic tools to help clear and move energy in the field, and then you work with very particular rituals to move this energy. So when someone comes to me to work in the shamanic sense, we would first start with understanding the story of what is happening in this person's life, what's going on for them. From there, when we go deeper, we can track to see that most of the problems that presents itself in your current reality is often based on your perception and your beliefs of what is happening. When we track this deeper, we go into the level of the mind, we can often find that there are wounds in the past, traumas that have been unprocessed and that have created a certain charge, a certain constriction of energy that is co-creating our current reality of what we depict as difficult in our lives. When we come into the shamanic realm, we take it one layer deeper. We go from the personal trauma, the experience we had in childhood or whatever it is that we're working with, that we look at the core as the core of our trauma and challenge, and we bring it deeper. It can track into the ancestral line, seeing that we are not the only ones that have this particular contract and design, but it has been inherited either through the maternal or paternal line, either through our ancestors, our grandmothers, or our grandfathers. So here we track to understand intuitively, metaphysically, what is the contract that we're here to fulfill? What is the higher understanding we're here to fulfill? And in that case, sometimes we can come to an ancestor. We can come to an unresolved contract, an ancestor that died while still holding a trauma, while still holding an unresolved process within them. We can also track reincarnately, meaning instead of tracking through the ancestral line, we receive information from past lives, from other lifetimes where our soul body, our biofield, lived in another time, another place, another name, another body, but it experienced something and made a certain contract around that experience that has been transferred into the field and that has been reincarnated into the client's body. So the client is ultimately having to resolve karma from a soul level from another life.
Yeah, this is super interesting. I had Ben Delonen here, who's the founder of IC Years, this nonprofit to help, really create a cultural context to integrate psychedelic into Western medical system. And he was saying that, one of the issues is that, in the Western medical framework, we see medicine as object that we take, whereas ayahuasca for indigenous tribe, it's more like a process. It's a process of ancestor healing that require certain knowledge and wisdom. And so I totally hear you when you say that in this cosmovision of the Q'ero, your mental well-being might not be only connected to your biography. For some of our listeners, most of them are converted in a way, but for some of the more hardcore secular materialists, this kind of methodology required for you to believe that there is some sort of cosmic intelligence that precede humans, right? The famous debate in science, the hard problem of consciousness, of mind over matter, who created awareness, the brain, or is awareness that was existing that created the brain? Do you think, just to bring it back to a little bit more scientific, if you want, recent progress in quantum physics, actually the Nobel Prize in 2022 was given to these three scientists who actually proven the quantum entanglement. So it means that on a subatomic level, two objects that can be one in China and one here, just by observing one object here, it changes molecular structure halfway across the planet. So this idea of the Newtonian Cartesian idea of this gigantic mechanical clock, which is all the stars and planets, which is independent of the observer, this subject-object duality has just been proven wrong. So mainstream media don't even cover that very much. But so this is, it might sound a bit woohoo, but if you do your homework in recent discovery in quantum physics, is not woohoo at all. I just wanted to ground it back. Okay, what's next? Fascinating.
Yeah, Giancarlo, it's very interesting to look at quantum mechanics these days. I say that because they are translating and proving much of the language of shamanism. So when we work with the Q'eros in the shamanic energy medicine wheel, we're working beyond time-space. We're working beyond the Newtonian laws of physics, far beyond. To give an example of this, I'm drawn to share a little bit about the indigenous sacred alchemy that we learn as part of the medicine wheel. When we work with sacred alchemy, we call upon the natural forces of the universe, the natural laws of the universe, to come and support us in an evolutionary process. The four corners, like I mentioned, south, west, north, east, also represents the natural forces of nature. They represent, in the south, gravity, in the west, electromagnetism, in the north, weak nuclear force, and in the east, strong nuclear force. I know it can be a lot to follow, so please bear with me. So when we work with alchemy, we work with entanglement theory. When we work on behalf of a client and a particular situation for a client, what our work is consisting of in some cases is that we track for the client, we track to find a trace of energy of what the client is experiencing. That can be a memory. It can be an emotion. It can be anything that the client can bring to the table that has an energetic signature to it. And this is where entanglement comes in for us. What we do is we pair an object. We use a medium to pair with the signature of the energy the client is coming with. So let's say someone has experienced a deep trauma, they're very in grief, they're experiencing a lot of emotion. What we would do in sacred alchemy is that we would use objects, use natural objects, natural elements. They can be stones, it could be wood, it can be water, it can be fire. We use first a medium to connect and pair the medium to the energy the client is experiencing. When I say pair, I mean if we're working with a stone or a piece of wood, the client would hold this stone. They would intentionally, using intention as a binding factor, as electromagnetism and gravity, to bind their energy into this medium. They could blow in the stone. We usually blow 3 times. They could have it close to them as they're sharing what's happening. And intentionally, we pair the energy the client is having to the electromagnetic energy of a stone or a wood, or a piece of wood, any live material that has an electromagnetic vibration. Once these two are paired, it means that they coexist, they are entangled to each other. What that means is that whatever you do to that stone, whatever process you take that stone through, you will take the energy of your client through the same process. So then we bring the stone or the piece of wood or the medium we work with, we bring it into alchemy. One way of doing it, as an example, we create what we call a sand painting or a mandala. We create an energetic structure made of natural materials in the ground. We set up what we call a microcosmos, a sacred space around this structure, by using the prayers to bring in the archetypes, by giving offerings. And we also work with the moon, with lunar cycles. We allow for a minimum of 14 or 28 days to pass as a time period for the alchemy to work, with the intentions that we put into this alchemy. The intentions of healing, of dissolving, of clearing the energy. Once we offer this to the lineage and the archetypes, and as the time goes, something very particular happens. It's like we connect with an energy that we pair, and when the medium is paired and we bring it into the alchemy setting, we start bringing that energy through evolutionary moments. As a shaman is doing this, as the period of this is happening, what we see is that spontaneous changes happen in the life of the client. It is mysterious, it is inexplainable, it is the law of synchronicity and possibility, but somehow spontaneous changes happen as we work in this type of way. I can give another brief example. A very classical example is fire ceremony. In fire ceremony, we work the same way. We use old pieces of wood that have been made sacred through ritual, and then the clients, they take these pieces of wood, they bring them with them, they blow their emotions, their experiences into them. They commune with a piece of wood until the piece of wood becomes identified and paired with what they're working with. Then we call in for ceremony, usually during full moons. We call in for fire ceremony. We create a sacred fire, an alchemical fire, and then we bring the piece of wood to the fire and we burn it. And as we burn that wood, as the energy dissolves and goes back into nothing, through entanglement, it sends the energy as above, so below, as within, so without. So the energy that the core of the energy of what the client is holding also starts dissolving and moving through its evolutionary process. And that can cause a cascade of effects in a human's lives. These aren't just processes that are happen by themselves and gone. These processes usually initiate big life changes in on behalf of the client's life, presenting them with the karmic teachings that they have to experience to heal the trauma or the karma that they're carrying.
Yeah, I remember those fire ceremony in Guatemala. It's a Mayan practice. I'm sure that there's many different traditions, but so this is fascinating that you can basically transfer your sorrow into a piece of wood, and then once you burn it, it's gone. It's interesting. But so, what would be for the skeptic among us? You need to believe in some sort of a field that we are all connected to, some sort of like morphogenetic field, like Sheldrake was talking about, or Akashic records, like Blavatsky was talking about, or how would you put it to someone that says, "Come on, you're not gonna tell me that, I'm grieving the loss of a dear one, and that grief will go into a stick, and then I'll burn the stick." And it's how do we cross that skepticism?
So to be clear, it's not always that easy that we can just blow our.
I'm sorry, I barbarize it a little bit.
Yeah, it is one of the tools to move energy, but since we're working in multidimensional layers of perception, we also have to tend to the actual emotions, the beliefs, the physical grief. The process of healing is a more complex one, but the use of alchemy is a powerful tool when we need support to have the energy move. If it's really stuck, if it's something that someone isn't able to get over,
I see.
Then this is used as a catalyst to help move through. But for those,
like an emergency tool.
Yeah, or a ritual tool, a ceremonial tool.
Yeah,
bringing the subject into ceremony, into a sacred manner. So you addressed what we call the non-believers, and it's interesting because I believe everything is a level of awareness and perception, and what you know, what you don't know, you don't know. Of course, to start learning to expand the mind, there are a lot of resources out there to share how spirituality and science are coming together. For me, this was a life calling. I saw the signs very early on, and I had experiences very early on with prayer, with asking something greater than myself for support and help. And in the times where I really needed it, more than anything, what it came to me, what I received was undeniable. The thing is, with spirituality, we can try to prove it in science, but I believe the Great Spirit isn't asking us to do that. This is a matter of faith. And it doesn't take much then just to open the eyes, look up at the skies, and just imagine the astronomic infinite of this universe. It doesn't take much to understand that this creation is beyond our understanding in our mind. And what I often say to my clients, in the end you have two choices. One, you can believe that everything is a coincidence and that there's no meaning to life, and that's just the way it is. Or two, you can believe that everything is divinely connected beyond any kind of imagination, beyond the understanding of mind. But as you choose to believe that, it also can empower you with the faith that you're not alone, that there is a meaning, that there is a purpose and a destiny with life. And the reason why the Q'ero lineage for me is so important is that it is a system to define that destiny. It is a system to come into clarity, to come into oneness with the Creator, to come into oneness with this greater being that we are, and understand in this life, what are we here to experience? And not only understand it, but accept and surrender to what we are here to experience.
Yeah, this is super interesting. But so how would can you elaborate on finding your purpose with the Q'ero methodology?
Great question. Okay, so the Q'eros, they speak of time. And they speak of time of not being linear. They describe time as an arrow, a circular arrow. And in the Q'ero lineage, ultimately, when you come to the north and the east, you come to what we call the destiny timelines. Finding your destiny, your purpose as a soul here, why you're here on earth. And what the Q'eros teach is that before you can connect to your future self, to your destiny line, you have to work through your past. This is because in the momentum of your life right now, so your life is a momentum, it is a timeline, it consists of many strains of time moving in one moment, coexisting, meaning past, present and future exists all at the same time. But our challenge when we're early on our spiritual journey is that the past is informing the present. Not only the trauma from our childhood, the beliefs, the perceptions, the emotions, the patterns that we end up in, the cycles that we repeat, but also the karma from our ancestors and from our past lives is informing the present. So the beginning of the journey of the Q'eros is to clear the past. It is to clear the pull the past has to our present timeline. And once this happens, once we start to clear emotion, clear beliefs, clear the roles and the identities which isn't our true self, once we start to dissolve this baggage we're carrying, the essential self, who you really are, starts to emerge. This emerging self comes with ideas, comes with intuition. What we do in the Q'ero lineage to promote this process is that we do destiny retrievals. Soul retrievals were for the past and for retrieving lost soul quanta. But destiny retrievals is when we track into the future. We use very particular forms of journeying, of shamanic journeying, vision quests, you call them, where we track into the future and we get to see potentials of a future, the highest potentials of our future. They can come in the form of images, they can come in form of intuition, or they can even be downloaded as a full vision of what we're here to do. And in that process, when this happened to myself, I found myself living a completely different life, doing something very different professionally. And when I came to the level of starting to receiving my core vision, my life purpose, my life work here, it was overwhelming, because my timeline, my momentum, the strains of my life and timelines were moving in one direction, but I was being asked to adapt them and change them into aligning with this greater vision that I had received. And that process was just like I explained now. I had to let go of the past. I had to let go of an identity of being a real estate agent. I have to let go of all the things that no longer were in resonance with that vision. I had to empty myself. And as I did that, synchronistically, intuitively, the next steps and pieces that I had to follow to reach my vision started showing itself. It's like spirit. You have to trust, and then you have to follow the synchronicities. And then if the vision has come to you, spirit will guide you step by step towards manifesting this. And the more you purify yourself, the more you clear the past, the more aligned, the more present and clearly you can see this vision coming into place. And then it's the mystery of following it, of manifesting it. And bit by bit you will experience, the more you come in contact with it, the more the momentum moves, the more powerful the momentum becomes, and the more you're manifesting and receiving this ultimate vision of your destiny timeline, of the reason why you're here.
Yeah, this is fascinating. But so, can you expand again? You touch on it already, but when you say the more you clear your past, the more you can connect with spirit. What does it mean to clear your past?
Okay. So the human energy field, if you imagine you having electromagnetic field around your body and your chakras, they are filled with imprints. From the cosmology, we carry 3 to 4 karmic imprints, 3 to 4 seeds. These seeds in the field, when you're born, they will activate and manifest your traumas. So when you're traumatized, when you go through an emotional experience that you can't process, what happens is that your meridian system and your central nervous system constricts. It creates blockages in your system. And when spiritual energy tries to channel through you, your alignment tries to happen, you can't hold it because these constrictions are triggered, bringing up past memory, past grief that we identify with, and we go in these karmic loops that we call them.
It's obstructed.
It's obstructed. So when I say clear the past, I mean clear the trauma. Clear these constrictions in the energy field and in the body so that there is more space, more awareness, more presence. And with that presence and awareness, we can stay more aligned to what is coming through us. And this is an important piece because today in the spiritual world, at least a few years ago, so many were concerned about the upper dimensions, about traveling upwards, about being in the heavens. And there are many people that have many great visions, but they have problems manifesting them because they're not grounded in the body. They don't have that physical aspect of being grounded here and now. And this is where these constrictions of trauma or karma come in. Because it is difficult to be grounded in the body here and now because there's no space in the body. Because the body gets triggered. Because we disassociate.
Because the mind is all over the place.
Because we go into the mental dimension. The soul escapes there.
The rumination.
Yeah, contemplation, the lack of presence. So for us to receive the vision, which many might have, the real work is to clear the constrictions in the body so that you can embody the vision, that you can actually ground it into this physical dimension.
So, forgive me, I have a cheeky question. And if you don't want to go there because it's not your domain, it's totally fine. But when you talk about obstacle and chakra, I've been interested in sacred sexuality recently, and my Instagram algorithm has very quickly figured that out. So it sends me all kind of teachings and workshop, and there is a trend of mostly ladies offering this practice of yoni de-armoring and also anal de-armoring, with the promise to unblock the obstruction on the ground chakra and then allowing financial flow. So I know it's a bit cheeky, we were having a very serious conversation. But this is actually, for many people, it is very serious. But do you see is this a marketing fad, or is it possible that the crown, the ground chakra can be obstructed and some sort of like deep tissue internal massage will release some of this obstacle that then will translate into financial success?
That is an amazing question. Okay.
Thank you for taking it like that.
Yeah. Let's go into the nature. I'll do my best to answer that. Okay. So, what we must remember is that the evolutionary journey of a soul, meaning the healing of karma or trauma and coming into our destiny, that is a multidimensional, dynamic, complex process, because it governs different dimensions of our being. It is governed by our body, meaning we can have lumps, constrictions. You mentioned anal blockage or
the armoring.
The armoring. What comes up when you share that is a definition of, as an example, hemorrhoids. So when you look into the central nervous system, the vagal nerve, when you look at the constrictions that happened through fear, through fight response, we can see that things like hemorrhoids, things like blockages, these are complex constrictions happening neurologically. Now, to become, let's say, to put this into in terms of becoming more abundant financially, I'll just give an example. We could be carrying, ultimately, karmic imprints that cause trauma for us in life, in childhood, that makes us constrict, close off our lower body, and to that constriction over time we develop hemorrhoids, prostate cancer, colonic cancer, different types of injuries, of illnesses in the body.
And for a woman not be able to receive pleasure, lubricate and stuff like that.
It can be anything from having problems, ovary problems with the womb, cancers, breast cancers. There is a variety of illnesses that manifest. Now, once we want to heal this, we can expect a multidimensional complex process to occur. That means it's not going to be one person that comes in and puts his finger on your hemorrhoids and then they're gone. It is most likely going to be a process of linear time where you are receiving healing from different levels of medicine, and through that you will go through psychosomatic experiences, experiencing grief, memory regression, a whole process of healing happening. When you come to the end of that healing, and your root chakra and your sacral chakra becomes more aligned, starts spinning more safely, you feel more grounded, more safe, because you've gone through your experience, yes, that can put you in a position to experience more worth, or it can set you in a position to start experiencing more worth. I personally, I combine the root chakra with primal survival needs. This is like, am I safe in my body? Am I safe here? I connect the sacral to more the sexual energy, the creative energy, and this is usually closed up by either guilt, shame, or fear. But when it comes to abundance, for me, the Manipura, the solar plexus chakra, has for me a lot of indications in terms of worthiness. This is where when the soul comes to an age of 8, 9 in the human body, up to 15, this is where our identity and acknowledgement and sense of self-worth is established. So if we were rejected, denied, ridiculed, it can damage the development of that chakra and the development of how we feel, how worthy we feel. So what I'm sharing is that in terms of financial prosperity, it's a more complex journey, and it's also coming to the relationship we have to money and our attachment to money, what the purpose of money have. In destiny timelines, I've never seen financial gain to be part of it, more a consequence of fulfilling your destiny and doing what you're here to do.
Yeah. There's this say that success happened to those too busy looking for it.
That's a good way to put it.
Where do you want to go with it? You send me lots of interesting points. Do you want to? You mentioned extracting spirits, cutting cords, ancestral and reincarnated karmic contracts, divination, time travel, the Kuya, soul and destiny retrieval, the death rites, ancestral constellation, soul cartography, tracking and moving energy, and much more. I think we need to do a 4th episode. But is there, where would you want to talk this? I mean, personally, if maybe not now, if you have time, go wherever you want. At some stage, I would like for you to try again to bring it down to how this understanding of this cosmic energy and this reflection in our body then ultimately can help people. Ultimately, I like to see Mango TV as a spiritual pragmatist. How is this? Is this just an elaborate theory, or are you actually getting people feeling better? And I know, because I recommended 2-3 people that were in a very bad state to you, and including myself, and we all get incredible good benefits. So I know it's working. At some stage, when you want, I'd love for you to reconcile. The deep mind technology is the trickiest one to understand, right? Because biohacking we understand, self-inquiry we understand. The deep mind technology, it becomes more esoteric, and people would intuitively believe like, okay, spirit is up there, it's nothing to do with me, I can believe it or not, how it does affect my life. And you did explain it with the ancestral energy, but if maybe we have another go at that.
Yeah.
When you want.
Okay, well, I'll do my best here. So, okay. So yeah, we have biohacking and we have self-inquiry. We have regenerative medicine, learning the body how to heal itself physically. And we have mental health, self-inquiry, coming through our traumas and finding ourselves again. Now, those two pieces are 2/3 of the puzzle of life. Deep mind technology, what's essential about it is that it's all about the spiritual world. It's all about the greater parts of us that transcends body mind, that comes into the spiritual aspects of ourselves. Now, when you go into the spiritual world, the challenge is that you're going to find a lot of new age information, a lot of contradictory information. So if you want to really practice spiritual wisdom, it can help to go to a lineage-based system, something that has existed for 5, 10, 30,000 years, that is like omnipresent in the world.
That time to prove themselves.
Yeah, and what we can look at Tibetan Buddhism, has a very similar cosmology to Q'ero shamanism. First, it is to educate ourselves and looking into these systems to see what they carry, because the wisdom is phenomenal. It's existential truth that resonates for so many. But I can understand, we have had 2,000 years of religious dogma. Many have taken a step back from believing in God or having faith. So it takes a bit of understanding to go into these lineages. Now, what the Q'ero has done for me, what that lineage has done for me, I share it from a very personal perspective. It is like I have been given, or I'm being given, guidance and support from existential resources of intelligence. And the longer I've been on this path, the more aligned and more precise that guidance has been given. How can this help someone? It's about creating meaning in life. Meaning in a life where if you come from the level of the body or the mind, it's very difficult to find meaning. Why you had to get so traumatized? Why did you have to go through all this pain? Why is there so much suffering in the world? It's so difficult to come to acceptance and surrendering that. And if you can't surrender to that, you're not going to be able to grow, because it's going to be stuck in a life without meaning. So these cosmologies, these ancient lineage-based systems of spirituality, they provide an answer to why there is suffering. The Q'ero and Tibetan Buddhists, they say the same. There is suffering because there is karma. We are on an evolutionary journey of a soul. We're not on an evolutionary journey of one human being and one body. We're traveling on a much longer trajectory of time to learn and to evolve as a spiritual being, not as a physical one. I'm drawn to share, if it's okay, Giancarlo, I'm drawn to share the core cosmology of the Q'ero when it comes to the journey of the soul. It's very similar to the Tibetan Buddhist sharing about reincarnation and karma. And I think that's a place we can start to intend to throw more awareness around deep mind technology and the big picture of life. Okay, so I'll try to make it short and sweet. So I mentioned this Viracocha, this 8th chakra. It's like an orb over our heads. It is the part of us that is immortal, that doesn't die, but that moves from host to host, that reincarnates into being from being.
It's like the soul.
It's like the soul, but it's the soul from a depersonalized point of view. Meaning that soul isn't called Louie or Giancarlo. That's just a quanta of spirit. But it has an individualized point. So it is individualized in the form that it's not the great all infinite. It has condensed and manifested into individualized
for this lifetime
part of spirit.
Yeah.
Not just for this lifetime, for many lifetimes.
Yeah, but it's like change flavors every time it reincarnates. It's the same essence with different flavor.
That's the way to put it.
Yeah.
So what the cosmology teaches us is that in every lifetime, when we are about to reincarnate, this soul quanta, it pulls in our coming life. It pulls in our mom, our dad, it pulls in the whole life experience because it is preparing itself to learn from the karma it's carrying from its past lives. I'll run through one sequence. So the conceiving of the child happens. During the conceiving of the child, I believe it is in the 7th week, around 49 days in, the soul starts to reincarnate into the body. And as it reincarnates, it means that the channeling from spirit comes down into the baby, establishing the 8th chakra over the child's head. And then the 8th chakra, when it's ready, it opens and it downloads the biofield, meaning it creates the 7 chakras and it creates the auric fields, and in that, all the karmic information exists.
Downloaded from your lineage.
Downloaded from the 8th chakra.
Into the baby.
From
where?
So the Viracocha, the 8th chakra, I will answer that as I continue explaining. So the Viracocha is carrying all the information from all the lifetimes of this soul. All the journeys is done. So you say from where? I'll share what happens through life, and then we'll answer from where it comes. So, as this is incarnated, as the baby receives its human energy field, as the chakras develop, and as the auric fields are established, the aura around the baby is established, the life of the child starts. Now, the life of the child is going to experience, in any regard, and when I say trauma, I don't just mean like abuse and heavy stuff. I mean anything that is constricting to the soul, any karma that the soul holds is going to activate in the child's field at very particular times. These imprints that are in the field, they carry contracts from the past of when the being experienced a past trauma, a past event that he couldn't heal. The current being that has been reincarnated is by design going to experience very particular traumas that are paired and entangled with the original karmic contracts of what they experienced in the past life, but they could not heal or resolve. So I'm going to fast track. So the person lived their life, they experience all these traumas, they get traumatized, they become a normal Western human being, traumatized. And here's what happens. And this is what the lore shares with us. When that human being who has been reincarnated grows up, becomes an adult, becomes old, and comes to their deathbed, this is where the cosmology is important. When they're on their deathbed, about 5 to 10 minutes before they die, there's going to happen a realization for the soul. It's said that before you die, your life reviews before your eyes if you have a conscious death, unless you're just shot or you die instantly. But if you die on the deathbed, it is said that your life reviews flashes before your eyes. What the Q'ero teaches us is that before you die, all your unresolved trauma that you had in the current life will become realized. Meaning you will have visions, you will realize all the unpaid debt, all the unresolved trauma that you carry, all the relationships, all the sorries you didn't say, all the things you haven't let go of, you will experience before you die. And the metaphysical property of this is the Q'ero say that 5 to 10 minutes before you die, all your chakras release their imprints into your main channel, into your main nadi line. All this information goes up your main line, passes through your mind, hence you have the realizations, and then it goes back up to the Viracocha. You upload all your karma, you die, and the soul continues to travel, finds a new host, and downloads the same karma again.
Wow. Viracocha is like a metaphysical memory stick.
Exactly. And what the Q'eros do here, and remember, it's a multidimensional system. It's psychological, it's physical, it's spiritual. What it does is that it can help you become aware of the trauma that you've experienced and let you see the connection that it's actually karma, and empower you to resolve and live through it. And this is the big carrot. Now, this is the smoking gun. The point with all our trauma, which I called karma, is that this is essentially the soul's lessons in life. The trauma that we've experienced, the karma we're carrying, it carries the potential of gifts and soul growth. So, finding our destiny is very much related to the gift side of the trauma, because once we work through the trauma, once we realize, we will see that it wasn't just trauma, actually it was a great gift, because we had an evolution through that experience. And just to finish, the point of Q'eran shamanism is to die a conscious death. It is to resolve all our debts, all our trauma, all our relationships, to die a peaceful conscious death without any karma.
So there's no way out. We have to deal with the trauma of our lineage.
We have to deal with the trauma of our life, and the trauma of our life is directly connected to the karma of the soul. So it is the liberation we're looking for lies in our trauma and the healing of our trauma.
Yeah, because it's a little bit of a, sometimes it's a bit of the depressing view of life. No, I mean you need to, as you say, you have to see this trauma as an opportunity for growth. But I mean, ideally, you want a Viracocha at the end of the journey where it's 99% pure. Would you want that for your son? I mean, I hope his Viracocha is towards the end. I mean, where is the value in having all this traumatic event that you have to deal in this lifetime? It's hard and it's painful.
Yeah, and that it's all about how you perceive it, because that's the thing. If you don't believe in any spiritual journey, any cosmology, any lineage-based wisdom, if you don't believe in that, you're going to be potentially very trapped in the trauma and the suffering of the experience, because there's no meaning behind it. So when I say you can choose, either it's a coincidence or it's a design.
Oh, but you can believe it, but it's still hard.
Yeah,
rewiring your brain.
Yeah, no, it's hard, and that again comes to perception, because, and this is up to interpretation. This is just my own belief, but being a spiritual being, living a physical life, by nature that is contracting, condensing. It's human life. It's not designed for us to suffer, but pain is part of human life. The understanding of emotions, the understanding of all the notes and dimensions of being a human being is all part of life. Now, if you can connect spiritually, either through a shaman or through another teacher or through your own practice, then you might, when you connect spiritually, you can start to receive higher insights and realizations about your trauma. You can almost depersonalize it or connect to a source of wisdom that makes it more palatable and more sustainable to live and work through trauma. It's a source of inspiration and a source of potential that comes down to you, rather than being lost and stuck in the darkness.
I know this conversation very well because that's the eternal debate between my wife and I, where she says that, healing our trauma is our life journey, she says. And then I would say, yeah, I mean, it's a difficult thing to put in words, but I still think that I understand more than any time in my life. In the last year, I had a real, I would say, spiritual awakening, and I'm really developing a connection with spirit and source, and so I still think that the trauma healing, it's, if you're lucky enough that your lineage is almost completely healed, it's better. Does it make sense? If I could, if I wish on my son who's 10 years old, I hope his viracocha is pretty clean. I would never recommend a very dirty viracocha to anybody.
Yeah. Well,
and forgive me the language. I'm trying to.
So the viracocha is our purest space. Although the viracocha downloads the human energy field, which have these imprints, I wouldn't call it good or bad or judge it in any way. It's
clean or dirty.
Yeah, it is. That is where the existential trust comes in, because every soul is here for their own being and purpose, and nobody wants our children to suffer. But we do have to consider accepting their
surrender.
Their journey. Now, something came up I want to share. So, some people today are stuck. They're stuck without meaning, purpose. They don't know where to start or go. For me, when I was at that time, it was about putting my hands together in prayer, about starting to set intention for wanting to grow. Although I didn't know the next step, I didn't know where to go, at least there had to be an intention, something inside me wanting to expand and grow. Now, what I've experienced directly is that once you start that prayer of growing and expanding, the next thing that's going to happen is that the nearest blockage inside you that is inhibiting your immediate next step of growth is going to show itself. So you're going to have to deal with something and work through it. And by working through that particular thing, it will initiate the next phase of your growth.
Yeah.
No pain, no gain, he says, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
So, and this happens throughout life. The more you expand, the more you grow, the more you embody your vision. My experience, there is always a next step of your evolution where you're being asked to go through a process that you have to go through. And that is the nature of karma. You can clear the karma, but once you activate and clear the karma, it just means it's ready for you to experience in physical form.
Yeah. John Halifax, the Zen monk, calls them lucky dark. That all this darkness, and it's just they're lucky because you grow through darkness. So I get it. So you need to surrender to your karma, and the spiritual evolution is linked to awareness of painful and pain that needs to be transcended, and that's the work. And as much as you want to wish your son to minimize his work, he's gonna have work to do.
We don't know. But he's a human. He's a human in living in these days.
Yeah.
Usually, most humans that live today in the Western world, we got work to do.
Yeah. So let's wrap it up. Let's give us a little bit of a personal flavor. So I can see how our first episode was a year ago. There was no mention of Gabor Maté. Then the second one was in February. I mean, I see your evolution also. Also, I've been working with you in what I call a trauma-informed shamanic system, which was very powerful. So how do you feel in your life now? Is there anything you want to share? I know something's happening across the Atlantic. You want to share about that? How do you feel? I want to know, one, how do you feel? How things are evolving for you, and also advice for maybe people that want to follow your professions or people that are stuck. Some practical advice.
Okay. Well, I find myself in my fourth spiritual turning. What that means is that since I started awakening many years ago, there have been 4 turnings, 4 expansions I've had to live through. And the last one has been the last 6 years. It's when I received the vision of Genesis, this lineage, this modern healthcare system. And I had to let go of my whole life, my work. I had to really scrap the majority of myself.
That was the fourth.
That was the beginning of the 4th turning for me.
Oh wow! But so the first one was many years ago.
Yeah, the first one was in 2006. It will be my first spiritual awakening.
Let's go through that real quick because that's it. That's more human. Let's humanize you a little bit. Can you be concise on the 4 turn?
The first turn or the 4th?
All of them.
Oh, okay, well that's a long story, but I'll try to wrap it up to share it with you. Okay, so 2006, I live in Oslo, real estate agent. I have spiritual ideas, but I'm not really spiritual at all. So I'm partying and going to Ibiza, traveling to Ibiza alone several times a year to just be there and go crazy. So in 2006, I'm in Ibiza. I go crazy. I sit 5 a.m. at S Vive Hotel in Figueretas, and a security guard there listens to me talking about astronomy and the universe. And he says to me, "Dude, I want you to come and meet the Oracle in Ibiza." And I had no idea what he was talking about. So I said, okay, when? He says, "Tomorrow, I pick you up." I said, I'm flying back to Norway tomorrow. I said, I pick you up in the morning. We go there 1 hour session. Okay. So he picks me up Monday morning. I go to see this Oracle, who actually is a hypnotherapist. But I meet her. She says, "Lay down." She asks me to close my eyes. She gives me my first experience of a guided meditation. During that guided meditation, she puts her hand on my left shoulder, and I have an experience of something that feels like a cloud in my chest opening, expanding, and then just combusting, just dissolving. And as it does that, I just feel a deep sadness and grief come out, and I start crying. No understanding of why, but it happened. I said, "Thank you very much." I leave. I travel back to Oslo. I go to bed. I wake up the next morning to get ready to go to work. And in the moment I wake up indulged in a completely new and foreign state of awareness.
Beautiful.
I wake up and I am fully, deeply in love. And I don't know what's happening to me. I call my parents. I'm like, "What's happening?" I feel just immense amounts of love.
For who? For everybody?
For everything. It's just an unconditional sense of love, but with a heightened awareness that is beyond my thoughts. So it's just love.
Incredible.
I put on my suit and my tie. I walk to work. As I walk to work, I walk past the King's Park in Oslo, and I see all the trees, and I stop and I spend an hour with the trees, hugging and feeling the earth. It's like I have a connection to everything I never had before.
Like a psychedelic experience.
That's it. I had tried mushrooms once in my life 10 years earlier, and that was the only reference point I had, but I hadn't taken anything. So what happens is that I go for a week carrying this energy. And in that week, I have received lots of intuitive messages. I share them with my friends. My friends start going through crises and stuff because the trauma is being brought up because I'm intuitively being asked to share it with them. It's a crazy week. But long story short, after 7 days, I collapse. I get a high fever for 3 days. And then I'm sick for 2 weeks. And once I come out of that sickness after 2 weeks, I'm back to my normal self. And I can't even access where I was. But I know it happened. And I have no idea what happened. So in that moment, I said, that's it. Okay, I need to ask the big questions. Who am I? What am I doing here? What just happened? And from there in 2006, that took me on a 3-year study of studying every single science I could think of that was existential to life, and also starting to study spiritual texts and information. And that led me 2009 to connecting with Alberto, the Q'eros, also connecting to Osho as a meditation teacher and via Bhavara Tantra. And in 2009, in June 2009, I had my second turning, meaning I reawakened and had that same experience for 3 weeks.
How?
Well, in one moment, I realized meditation. So I realized that I existed, that I could be aware, that I can, through my senses, switch on and focus my senses on the present. And by doing that, my mind would stop. And the more intensely I focused on the present, the more energy resources I would receive through my channels. So I left everything, my work, I stopped everything in one day when I realized. I started focusing and centering my awareness constantly from when I woke up to when I went to bed. It took 3-4 days, and then I awakened. Then I jumped on a plane, flew to Ibiza, and lived outside here in Ibiza for 3 weeks. No hotel, no money, no nothing. I just stayed present with spirit and allowed spirit to guide me through what I call the second turning, the second awakening. And when I landed from that, I could hold all the information, I could keep all the guidance that was given, and the message was, leave Oslo, leave your job, leave your whole life, and come to Ibiza and start your journey.
Nice.
And I did.
Then the third was when you left hospitality?
No. So the third turning happens in a period from 2015, 16, 17. I started working more deeply with ayahuasca, with plant-based medicines. I started going deeper into my spiritual journey. And then the third turning comes into 2017 when the vision is downloaded of Genesis. And that ends the third turning, and then the fourth turning starts from 2018 towards today. That is the real renaissance of my evolution, where I've let go of all my past, all my identities, worked very thoroughly through my trauma in this life, all my karmic imprints, gone through hundreds of ceremonies, initiations, the full initiation of the Q'eros as one of them. And where I find myself now is that now I'm coming more and more into a steady alignment. And because I'm in that alignment, because I'm channeling and bringing through me, or because what is coming through me is allowed to be so stable, the momentum is expanding immensely. Hence, much more people are coming into my life, more opportunities, more resources. And this healing clinical wellness center in Mexico is part of that. So it's really, once you commit yourself and dedicate yourself and you stay on the path and you use all the resources you can for yourself to grow, there will come a point where you will start expanding and growing. And when you start doing that, the forces of nature will come with you. And you will see that through being supported through family, friends, resources, colleagues, opportunities. You will just know that you're in that flow, and then you're dreaming the world into being. Then it's just keep on going.
Amazing. This is very interesting. Thank you very much for your time today. Really, I took advantage of your time-wise. I just wanted to make sure that the audience understood that, Louis said that he's had the download of a new healthcare, but it's not new, the healthcare, because what we have today, we don't have a healthcare, we have a sick care. The way the healthcare is structured today, you only see the doctor when you have some symptoms, and normally the doctor give you a prescription to address those symptoms. What a healthcare is a system based on staying healthy. It's an holistic approach to mind, body, and spirit, as you heard for the last hour and a half. So I think that this approach is revolutionizing healthcare, and some smart doctors are already looking at mind and spirit, not just at the body. Last question for you is, if there is a young I don't know, 20 years old, young adult who has this calling to help people. He doesn't know if he wants to be a doctor or a psychotherapist, or what advice would you give? I mean, how do you become a practitioner of the third millennium holistic healthcare system?
So my suggestion would be for anyone who wants to go into the health practitioner role is to take your time and really study the postmodern systems that are coming out. Because
alone on your own, or there is some university, some college?
Yeah, so first, when I say study, I don't mean go into study. I mean investigate and explore all the postmodern systems that are coming out because they're revolutionary.
Like Gabor Maté,
Dr. Richard Schwartz, if you want to go into mental health, psychotherapy. If you go into regenerative medicine, you go into epigenetics, biohacking, microbiology. There is a symphony of these out there, and there are schools and universities that are establishing these curriculums. So I would take some time to look outside of the traditional systems and start educating of what is there. And what you might find, like I did, you will come across particular curriculums of study that just resonate with you. Follow your resonance, follow your bliss, and then understand that this path is long. What I see today, just to finish, what I see and what I work with today is that I see an evolution of health practitioners coming out. And what I see that is unique to them is that they're multi-skilled. They're not trained in one tradition. They have 2, 3, 4 traditions. They're hungry to continue learning. And most importantly, they embody their own medicine. So no matter what kind of healer you are, you will only bring your client to the level that you reach yourself. So your embodiment on top of the practical skills, that is the symphony. Doing your own work, acquiring the foundation of skills, and then you'll be a badass therapist to help everyone in the world today.
Amazing. This is a really good advice. Let me just let's repeat so we can put it in the show notes. In terms of the postmodern, interesting, alternative, more holistic medicine model. So let's mention them again. Gabor Maté, then Schwartz.
Yeah, so Gabor Maté with compassion inquiry is super unique because it's somatic therapy, but it also has a lot of theory and teachings around psychological health.
Yeah.
Internal family system, Dr. Richard Schwartz, also a great system to work with. Transpersonal psychology is another system from Stan Grof. Psychedelic assisted therapy, another great system. And the last one is polyvagal theory. These are 5 systems. They work within each other, and I believe the really good therapists, they have a foot or a finger within all of them. If you're interested in the Q'ero lineage, you can visit the 4 Winds Society, 4winds.com. There you can go straight in. You will see a universe of shamanic teachers, initiators, and you can start easy or go all in and learn these amazing tools from the Q'ero and the energy medicine system.
Amazing.
And just to mention, there are from what I see and work with, there are many therapists today that are trained as psychotherapists and shamans together, because you want to develop this trauma-informed shamanic values and skill sets.
System. Well done. Thank you very much, Mr. Valotti. We'll see you in 6 months and see to check with you and what's new with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Koka sunarai sunarayenti. 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 Koka sunarai sunarayenti.